Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Dixon. I am a massage therapist on Nantucket Island who is for the first time in 20 years unable to work right now. And I'm going to be doing a class on posture, particularly sitting. And my background, in addition to massage, is also that I am a health coach and also that I am a postural alignment therapist through Egoscue University. Now, in my 20-year career, when I first was a massage therapist, the massage addressed almost everyone's issues that they had. And since that time, something dramatic changed in my client's life and use that made postural work more relevant than even perhaps some of the massage that I did. Can anyone guess what those couple of things were?
Technology.
Yes, technology. Yeah, exactly. So the biggest thing were people started using technology more, and they started using phones, and the phones tended to sort of look like this. And as you can see, hopefully from the side, quite an angled neck. And people also started to use computers. Now, when people had desktops, people's postures used to more often go like this. But additionally, when kids had laptops and adults had laptops, we tended to get a lot more of a C posture. So let me just take this off. So a lot of the posture that we had was this rounded C posture with people sort of typing on their computer like this, particularly because we were looking down at our screen to see what we were typing. And really the back is meant to have a different position, which we will talk about. Kids tend to use their laptops even on the couch, at least my kids do, in spite of me trying to get them to stop. And so it even has more of that C curve, and that C curve is a very flexed pelvis, a very flexed back, and a very flexed neck. And for example, when that head moves forward 3 inches, instead of the typical 8 to 11 pound head, the weight of our head becomes 42 pounds. So our muscles, instead of just holding a balanced about 11 pounds, has 42 pounds that it's supposed to work. So one of the things I'm going to talk to you today is how to set up your computer screen and your computers, because we're all doing computer work now, that it will be better posture for your body. The other things I'm going to do is talk about some exercises that you can do right at your desk that are going to help negate some of the activities that you're doing. And also some ways that if you spend a lot of time sitting at work or sitting at home doing work or sitting on the computer watching Netflix, that you can take little breaks that are going to help negate the amount of time that we are sitting. So there's several issues that happen with a lot of technology use. Some of it is the postures we adapt when we're using that technology, and some of it is that we're sitting so much. We're not really meant to be sitting so much, but you can learn to sit better, and that is going to have a better effect on your body. For example, a while back, people started saying that sitting was the new smoking, that sitting was the problem. And the reality is over time, people adopted a standing desk. And with time at a standing desk, people also got injured. And what they found was it wasn't the sitting improperly only that was the problem, or the standing improperly that was the problem. It was that we did one thing too much of the time, and when we did it, we weren't doing it right. So in the ideal world, okay, when we're sitting, if you look at me from the side, okay, many of us sit in a posture where our pelvis is sort of forward and we slump back like this. And so this is a very casual way that we sit. So this is a very common way that we sit. And as you can see, my head is relatively upright, but my body is not stacked at all. okay? Another way is that people might sit up on their sit bones, but they're going to be way hunched over and they're going to be looking down at the screen like this. And in the ideal world, we're going to be sitting in extension. And I will talk a little bit about sitting in extension in a second, but did everyone get the pamphlet that went out?
No.
Okay. Well, there is a pamphlet and I can get it to you guys if it hasn't gotten it yet. But
No.
all of this information I'm going through is in the pamphlet as well.
Amy has everyone's email address, so we'll send it out by email.
Okay. So in the pamphlet, there is a picture of the C sitting posture that is not ideal that you will start to see in everyone now. Okay. But also how to set up your computer and desk that it's more ideal for when you are sitting. So part of that posture includes, and I will attempt to share my screen in just a second and show you guys a picture of it, but it's proper right angles of the body. So I'm going to be sitting up on my sit bones, okay? I'm going to have proper right angles of my knees. My feet are facing forward. I have keyboard access, so it relaxes my arms and I'm able to type with sort of my arms being at right angles, and I have a very slight arch in my back. Now, one of the interesting issues with laptops is you can never type and have the proper angle of your head. It just doesn't happen because of the angle of the screen. So you can either accommodate to work on one or the other, or you could make some adjustments. For example, if your feet don't hit the bottom of the ground properly, mine are right now, okay? But if, say, my leg was coming down here and wasn't at right angles, you could put a box under your legs. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you could put a box under your legs, and that's going to allow your legs to be able to be at right angles. For me, it wasn't the right thing, okay? Right now, with me typing, this wouldn't be a bad angle for my arms. I'm relatively right angles here, but as you can see, I'm having to angle my head down. Two things we could do, okay? I could either keep my eyes horizontal, which is what eyes are supposed to do in space, okay? And use my muscles, eye muscles, to look down at my keyboard like this. So that would actually make it absolutely fine for me to do like this. Okay, so as you can see, my body is relatively stacked. I'm able to type and my eyes are looking down. Or, okay, I could lift up my screen, okay? Place it so that the eyes are more angled like this, and then get a little keyboard, I don't know what they call it, but a little keyboard that gets plugged in. So now I'm typing right here on my keyboard and my eyes are horizontal to the screen that I'm looking at. So these are different ways. I will try to see if I can share my screen for a second so you'll see the picture that you'll be getting later. It comes from someone else, actually, but let me see if I can. You know what? I will share that later, actually.
I can share it now if you want.
Okay.
I just need a minute to open it.
Okay. All right.
So I'll share it in a second. Here it is.
Okay.
I just have to open it up and then I'll share my screen. Please stand by. There we go. Okay, so this is the one I have. Is that the right one?
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you. That's exactly right. So you will be getting this PDF at some point today, but you can see the curved posture of how a lot of people sit. This is actually how I see a lot of adults sitting when they're working on the computer. When you're watching Netflix or TV, I tend to see people more with that pelvis forward and slumped like this, watching things. So, and then this picture right here on the right is more how you can set your computer screen up so that it's a little bit more ideal posture for you. Now, one other accommodation that I forgot to mention is that you also could, if it's hard for you to sit upright, you can also stick a pillow into your lower back. And that is going to sort of help if you're sitting up on your sit bones and you put a pillow in your back, because really with your loaded pelvis and the rest of your body on top of it being in a relatively relaxed position, it's not a lot of energy to sit in this position, okay? It's a little bit more energy to sit in pure extension, which I'm going to talk to you right now. So how we're supposed to be sitting is sitting in extension. And sitting in extension is an element, and there's the descriptions in here, but sitting in extension is when we sort of start, we have our knees about 4 to 6 inches apart with our toes pointed forwards. And then we start with sort of a slumped position. We're able to feel both of our sit bones, which are those little bones in the bottom of our pelvis. And then we're just going to roll our hips forward. So we place a low arch, a small arch in our back, okay? And relatively, there's a little bit of work to hold ourselves upright, but we're relatively able to be balanced from front to back, okay? So once we're used to this position, it's not a lot of work to stay in it. And if you are, again, looking to sit at your desk for a while and you wanted to sit up in extension, you could have this pillow behind your back, and then you're going to naturally just sit here. As you can see, I'm really relaxed in this position and I can just type and everything is just fine. So that is sitting in extension. Anyone have any questions yet about setting up your computer or sitting in extension? Well, if you do, you can always email me as well or text me. Okay, so the other thing that we want to do at our computer is to introduce movement that might negate or be an opposite for the negative stuff that we're sitting. So in theory, when we're doing computer work, we have a lot of slumping or forward. Everything is sort of in flexion. So if we're going to be spending a lot of time at our desks, and ideally we're going to have our desks set up properly, there's a few exercises that we can do to sort of be to help support our body in more proper positions. So one of them is sitting shoulder rolls. So sitting shoulder rolls is, I'm going to start by sitting in extension. So I'm going to sit up with that little bit of a forward roll of my hips, okay? I'm gonna take my shoulders, and my shoulders spend a lot of time in this position, okay? So I'm gonna take a nice big, and I'm just going to do these big rolls of my shoulders, and my body really isn't moving, and I'm going to do about 10 big purposeful rolls in one direction. And then the opposite. And actually, most of us, this rolling our shoulders back is probably one of the most important things that we can do. Okay. The next exercise that's in your pamphlet is sitting chair twists. So most of us will spend an element of time, if you're right-handed, okay, or left-handed, any is having a dominant side. So if I'm typing, it's less. But if I'm writing and I'm right-handed, you can see that I have this dominant side that I'm twisting to, okay? One of the rules of ideal posture is that we be able to work both sides equally, as opposed to just one dominant side. So there is an exercise called sitting chair twist. And sitting chair twist is going to introduce thoracic rotation on a stable pelvis in both directions. So really how you do it is, I'm in the same sitting in extension. I'm going to twist to the left, but I'm going to place my right hand on my left knee, and I'm going to sort of come in this position, and then I'm just going to twist my body, including looking over. I'm looking in this direction, and what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little bit of a twist into my body. If I didn't have this back of the chair here, and you could always do this, I could sort of get a little bit more of a twist in this direction. And this is going to use currently the muscles that I use the most. And then the opposite, this is the one that I don't use as much. I have my hands on the opposite, and I'm going to introduce rotation in the other direction. And this is just going to kind of twist your body a little bit and get it used to the other direction. Okay. And one of the last exercises that I have is called sitting overhead extension. So this one, depending on shoulder mobility, and I'd forgotten to put a disclaimer at the beginning that, of course, make sure you're healthy enough to introduce all of these activities into your life. And if you're not, see a doctor and then come see me, because you really need to have movement in your life, is sitting overhead extension. So most of us spend time with our arms in a very limited range of motion. There's like a box. And if you have any limited range of motion in your shoulders, I encourage you to take Friday's class, which is on shoulder mobility. But most of us spend time with our arms in a very limited position. And we really need to have better extension in our upper back and better extension in our arms. So one exercise that you can do, okay, is going to be to roll your hands together, okay, lock out your elbows. You're going to have your elbows up by your ears, okay, but then you're going to look to only go back as far as your shoulders actually allow, because I could push my head forward and it looks like I get a lot, okay? But instead I'm going to kind of sink my shoulders, my humerus into my shoulder blades, and I'm going to bring it up as much as the extension in my upper back and my arms can allow. Now I spend a lot of time in a flexed position with a flexed hip, so this is not particularly easy for me. I'm almost breaking into a sweat doing this, but this is going to add a lot of extension in that upper back that we spend so much time leaning forward over our computer screen. Any question on the exercises that I just gave you? And these will be in your pamphlets as well. Okay? All right. So tomorrow's class, I mean,
Rachel,
yes.
Urete had a question.
So somebody who spends like the entire day at the desk, for example, like an 8-hour day, how often do you suggest doing those exercises?
Okay. So when I get over the other things, what people have said, now how many times you do those exercises, you might want to do a couple of them a couple of times. And there's other exercises that you could do. I sort of picked 3 because I didn't know how our time was going to go. And I'll quickly show you a couple of others that aren't in this. But if people could do, you will find ones that you already do that are useful for you. So shoulder rolls back maybe are going to be more important, and maybe when you're already reading an email, you can do it. It doesn't have to be that you stop everything and do it, or you're reading an email and you come up like this. If you were to do a couple of these, even every hour, that would be super helpful. But one of the biggest things that people have, and this is more about the part when I go over what you can do at home to sort of add more movement into your life, is they say that getting up for 30 seconds, I guess it's 1 minute every 30 minutes is incredibly important, okay? So, and that was even more important to people's overall movement than getting up for 2 minutes once an hour. And I'm not sure why. That came from someone very smart who's done his research, so I just believe him. But when we get into different ways that we can add more movement, if you are a sitter who sits all the time, there is the exercises that you can do to negate the work that the sitting work that you're doing. And then there's ways that you can add more movement into your day. So ways that you can add more movement is to set up your printer either in another room or across the room. So then when you go to print something off, you actually have to get up, walk, and go get it, It's really great to drink lots of water when you're at work. Being hydrated is a great way to keep more focused. And it makes you go to the bathroom a little bit more often, which gives you an excuse to be able to get up and go to work. I mean, when you're at work. Another thing that can be really helpful is balancing blood sugar. I know that for myself, you know, I get into these little slumps and I'm not used to sitting all day. And I've been sitting a lot more lately since I haven't been working as much. So balancing blood sugar can be really efficient, and breathing better. So in Wednesday's class, it's going to be on an exercise called static back and better breathing. Those are also really great for people who sit all the time. I don't want to go into it too much right now because I have the class scheduled for Wednesday, but static back sort of sets your body back after sitting all the time. So it's very, very easy. It's great to do when you're breathing. So if you are sitting a lot, come to Wednesday's class where we talk about static back and better breathing, because both of those can help you when you're sitting all day as well. Any questions on that? Okay, so since there is a couple minutes right now, some other exercises that you can do while sitting at your desk, okay? Because all of these exercises are done sitting. They can also be done standing, and I can show you what those look like. But some other exercises is, you know, we tend to be stuck in flexion a lot at work, and there is an exercise that they call, it's in yoga, I think it's called cat camel. For myself, in Egoscue, they call it cat and dog. And you're just working with the pelvis is rolling in, your whole back is rolling into flexion, and then I'm drawing my pelvis forward and my whole back is going into extension. And actually I'm letting my eyes be the driver. That is the neurological part of this. And I'm just working in flexion and extension. And it's reminding my back how to extend. And my back is cracking and popping right now. Okay. So another exercise that's really helpful that I didn't have in this right now is, Egoscue calls it sit to stand. Many people end up ironically injuring yourself because you often get up and you're holding on to something and you're shifting in like this and you're using your back to get up, okay? And in the ideal world, okay, we are going to actually shift a different way. If you have a really sore back, I would recommend, can you see my feet? Okay, see how I have my feet sort of apart from each other? I'm going to shift my weight into my legs, and then I'm going to stand up using my legs as opposed to shifting using my back like this. But one way that we can practice those muscles, because it actually takes muscles to do this, okay?
Rachel, can you, your video cut out, can you do it one more time? Your video's back.
Sure. Okay. So I start with my feet apart, okay? And then I'm going to shift my weight in. So now I'm over my legs, and I'm going to use my legs to push myself up. So this is probably more important for people if their back is really sore, okay? If they've irritated their back. I usually recommend that people do this. But another way that we can practice it, okay, is to take our arms out by putting our hands behind our head, okay? It's going to be a lot of work to kind of create that, they call it elbow curls, but it's sort of extension in those shoulder blades, okay? Then I'm going to shift my weight in. Sometimes it helps to start with a higher chair than a lower chair, but to shift your weight into your legs and then push yourself up and then come back and forth. And if you have trouble doing this without leaning too far forward, start with a higher chair, like a bar stool where you're having less movement, and you will build up the muscles that you need in your leg to be able to get up properly. One of the most important things for people to be, as you get older, safe at home is the ability to get up without using your arms, to be able to get up from the ground, even if you're not injured. And a surprisingly number of people are starting to lose these little micro pieces of basic movement that's going to help you later. And you've been able to compensate really, really well, but it does catch up with you. So all these little things make a really big difference eventually in having better quality of life later. Besides, you get injured less often if you are a really stable person. Another exercise that can be really helpful is elbow curls. So elbow curls, they have a golfer's grip. It's kind of an active hand, but whether you have golfer's grip or something else, so you kind of like pinch your fingers in, but you have your hands here, okay? And then I'm going to bring my elbows together and open them up. And the work is sort of done between the shoulder blades. Some people actually have a hard time getting their elbows in. Some people have a hard time opening their elbows out. But either way, you kind of want to have both sides being able to work. At the same time, you could put, this isn't soft. Oh, this is soft. You could also sit with that arch, okay? And I can squeeze and release my inner thighs. And you can actually do both of these at the same time, though it's a little bit like doing two things at one time. But most of us have very active external hip rotators, and we've sort of lost the ability to engage the internal hip rotators. And so most of us have more of a need to create, sort of adduction and create a more stable pelvis for us. So these other exercises are also sort of useful for us to add in sort of knee squeezes and elbow curls as well. Though you might want to do those a little bit less often. And then the class that I'm doing for Wednesday, which is static back and breathing, can be really helpful for end of the day to sort of make up for many hours of sitting stacked over. All right, any questions?
I have a question about on the ideal desk setup.
Yes.
You mentioned that it's kind of been in question, the sitting, the standing. If one were to set up, I feel I really need to address setting up a better desk layout. Is it better to set up one that can be either, or what's the latest?
So the latest is being able to sit, if you're going to sit how that picture has it, okay? So, but the very best situation is one of those desks that could be either. So they have some which you can set up to the proper level for sitting, but then you can also just raise it so you could stand. Over time, they had noticed, they had said, oh, the issue was just sitting, right? And then everyone went to standing. And when they did standing for a period of time, people were getting injured by standing improperly, okay? Same as they were sitting improperly. So the reality is they discovered it wasn't either sitting or standing, it was not adding enough movement. To sit all day or stand all day is not ideal either. If you can sit properly or stand properly and change it up is the most ideal. If you were to be at standing, okay, some of the same principles of sitting would play into effect. For example, okay, you would want to stand, okay, with your feet relatively hip width apart, okay, your feet facing forward and your shoulders, being forward, okay. What a lot of people do is they stand on one leg and have one hip out, or they shift to another one, or they have their feet really wide with their pelvis shifted forward, or they do a lot of shifting around type of a thing. So some of the same issues that people had with sitting show up in different ways while standing. There's a few exceptions where people have very sensitive backs, and if it hurts to sit, and if it hurts to sit, then I would absolutely say stand, if it hurts to stand, then sit, but for the most part, setting your body to be stacked properly in whatever position, changing it up and adding as much other movement in the day. The other movement can be taking frequent breaks, and it can also be do some sort of a routine that is going to introduce what motion your body needs. So one thing I hadn't really talked about was the difference between postural work and what like a personal trainer would do. A personal trainer is going to work mostly on the big muscles, they're going to work mostly on building strength and working your cardio. Postural work is saying moving the muscles to introduce proper range of motion for you. You know, if you dominantly work this way, you want to introduce the opposite motion to it, and to make sure that your body is sort of balanced from left to right. It works more on a neurological basis, but it also is introducing the micro movements that you are missing. It's like what vitamins are missing in your life versus the macronutrients. So if you were to either stand or sit, to figure out what your body needs to be the proper movement little vitamins for your body is very helpful, either at the end of the day or to start your day so that you're working well. With some people, they found that if they do certain pelvis exercises or unrotational exercises, and then they go to sit or stand, their body already is sort of primed for better posture. And then at the end of the day, they say, okay, but I still spent so many hours doing this. At the end of the day, if I unwind in these exercises, it's sort of like the icing on the cake.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? And feel free to contact me. I know everyone that's on this, so feel free to contact me if you have any questions about anything, because I'm really also transitioning into different ways of communicating with people myself. So I can work with people online if they have any questions as well. And there is a ton of Egoscue. Now, Egoscue is the training that I had. Pete Egoscue has a lot of, either the clinics have little videos on, say, hips or backs or, you know, something. And then also additionally, they have Somina, S-O-M-I-N-A, I believe, has a lot of little video clips on great little exercises that you can do that are absolutely free. So, okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Really
Rachel.
appreciate, great that you're doing this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.